called you criminal minded. To show you something else too, this is the original. Isn't that hot? I got one of these. One of the old originals when I first self-published. And it did well. It did well based on all of you out there who are willing to say, I'm interested in this topic of criminal justice, because believe me, I told you back 10 years ago that this is the #1 civil rights issue in the world. And when I wrote the book, and then on the heels of that, Michelle Alexander came out with her book, which I think is phenomenal, The New Jim Crow. But you know what I found out is that, I began to research this, and I found that a lot of people write for that other community. That community that is in charge, that community that believes it's superior. They're writing for that community. They don't write for our community. Raw Law is written for our community. Everything that I write is going to be for our community so we can raise ourselves up. Because, see, we have to take control of this. I mean, literally have to take control of it. We have to be like that 100,000 Africans who marched into Spain because we knew it was the right thing to do. And the only way we can do that is to coalesce, to come together and say to ourselves that we can't tolerate racism, white supremacy anymore. What does that mean? See, because people always talk about racism, white supremacy as if it's always about white people. But let me tell you how it works, all right? The backdrop is this. I want you to imagine that when you come in, you got a kid, it's a baby about a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, and you send them to kindergarten. And the first thing that they learn in kindergarten is pledge allegiance to the flag. Right? So you're a young black kid from, say, Newark, maybe Denver, maybe Dallas, Houston, Baltimore, Southeast D.C. My shout out to Southeast D.C. Quran, I know you out there. And the first thing they learn is, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They will never see liberty or justice. They will never see one nation under God, indivisible. Now, all those white kids might be able to identify with that. But you have already put your child, your 5-year-old child, in a position to be inferior, to feel inferior. Because he can't identify with it. He doesn't even understand the concept of liberty and justice for all. He never sees it. And he will never see it in America. He will never see it. You start today is December 30th, the last day of the year in the year 2017, and march back every day that you want to. And you won't find one day where black people experience liberty and justice for all. Not one single day. Now, how is it then that we continue to come out into the system like we own it, like it really is meant for us? Who are we? I mean, are we just that ignorant? Are we just that in love with the fact that white people said we could do it? Who are we? Did we lose our minds totally? This is why I always refer you to the history. I always refer you to people like Martin Luther King. I always refer you to people like Fannie Lou Hamer. Because once people got their minds back, they became giants. They became giants. They began to change the face of the world. And I'm not just talking about the face of America. I'm talking about the face of the world. The Syrians right now, fighting for their life and for their country, quote Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X in 2017. Here we are, 150 years removed from American chattel slavery. And what do we find? They have chattel slavery in Libya, where they're selling black people. Did we completely lose our minds? And I'm suggesting, too, that therein is part and parcel of white supremacy. The way we feel about ourselves has been indoctrinated into us. So when our 5-year-old begins to see himself as less than, everything else that comes after that teaches him that he's less than. Who was the first president of the United States? Anybody in here know? George Washington. You know, he never told a lie. But history told a lie about him. They didn't tell you he was a slave owner. They wouldn't dare tell you no foolishness like that. 200 slaves. And you can imagine how the slaves were treated. Land that didn't belong to him that was taken from Native Americans. They would never tell you that. But as you grow older and you begin to understand that this guy who was the father of the country, a founding father, and a father is a term of endearment. You call someone father. When you're Catholic and you call the priest father, you're calling somebody a term of endearment. When you have a dad and you call him father, they say you come to school with him, this is my father, you're talking about a term of endearment. So when I call George Washington or Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson, who had fathered, what, 6, 7 kids by a 14-year-old Sally Hemings. It had to be raped because she was a slave. She couldn't say no. When we call him founding fathers, what are we saying about ourselves? What are we saying about our true fathers, our true daddies? If we are equating them with that term, we are immediately saying to our kids, you don't matter. Your history doesn't matter. Your body doesn't matter if you're a woman. This man was able to do whatever he wanted to with that slave woman. But you should call him a founding father. There's a couple of words I like to call that cat, but I'm a gentleman, so I won't step over the line. Yes, I will, one day. But that's all being ingrained into your son or your daughter as to how she is going to feel about herself. This is why every so often, when they did Brown versus Board of Education, psychologists put black kids into a room and they gave them dolls. And they said, here's a white doll and here's a black doll. And they would ask them questions like, who's the pretty one and who's the ugly one? And they would religiously pick the white one as being the pretty one. The white one as being the kind one. The white one as being the intelligent one. And the black one as being the mean one. The black one as being the ugly one. That's the psychological damage that was done to those kids. And so somebody did the experiment in 2012, redid it, and got the same result from the experiment that was done in 1953. Which means that we haven't grown mentally as a community to be able to bypass the onslaught that was coming to us. Now, legally, I connect the dots for you. I did an article in the Don Diva magazine. If you get a chance, you check it out in the November issue. It's called Connect the Dots, as to how it is that we got to the criminality that we now have, the absolute lawlessness that we now have. So I'm going to give you a brief synopsis. I already talked to you about how they manipulate the law, and I say this all the time. If every black person got together tomorrow, every hustler got together and said, we are going to agree not to sell drugs on Wednesday. On Thursday, Congress will pass a law saying it's illegal to get together and conspire not to sell drugs. This is how much they cannot stand not being in control of the black mind. This is what the 60s and King and Malcolm and Adam Clayton Powell and SNCC and H. Rap Brown and Kwame Ture, this is what they brought to the table. When they exploded on the world, the Black Panthers, they exploded on the world. They raised the level of black people. Go back and look at the crime rate then. People were too busy getting together, too busy saying no to white supremacy, to be warring with each other. And so that's why your J. Edgar Hoovers of the world had to infiltrate them, had to find black people willing to cooperate and shoot down their movement and try to destroy them and assassinate them. But isn't it crazy that on the heels of Malcolm going out in Audubon Ballroom in New York, that he dies in 65, and in 66 and 67 and 68, your Nicky Barnes, and in 68, 69, your Frank Lucases begin to control the streets in Harlem. And they control them with international trade. They're not controlling with local trade now. The drug trade is coming from heroin in Vietnam. But Malcolm is off the scene. He's dead. Isn't it intriguing that Fred Hampton is in Chicago and the people are coalescing, coming together to make change in their community, and when he's assassinated, now you got lawlessness in Chicago? You think it's all a coincidence? You have in 200 and, I think this kid, Tobias's body number 244, and since that there's been another 8 or 6 or 8 in Baltimore. You think this isn't orchestrated? You didn't think this is all part of the same psychology, the same psychosis that says your life doesn't matter, that a black man has no right, that a white man is bound to respect, that self-hate is who you are, that you are lower than a dog, you are less than an animal, that all you really care about are things, you don't care about life, you don't have any morals, you don't have any values. Look at it. Here's what you do. Go look at the next time. Go down to the courthouse and watch a trial and see how they treat a black defendant. Just see how they treat him. Look at the disgust on everybody's face. I'm not even talking about jurors. I'm talking about jurors. I'm talking about court personnel. I'm talking about judges. I'm talking about prosecutors. I'm even talking about defense attorneys. Look at the disgust they have on their face. And you'll see it. You'll see it in every aspect of the culture if you're willing to look. Unless you just completely are mentally lost, or you're just in love with everything that European civilization has to offer. I heard a joke the other day. It's an old joke, I knew it, but the guy was talking about Gandhi, and he said Gandhi had visited some Western country, and they asked him, what do you think about Western civilization? And he said something like, it'd be a great idea. Meaning it didn't exist, but it just doesn't exist. But we think it exists because we're the ones carrying it. We're carrying Koreans. We're carrying Arabs who treat us like dogs. We're carrying Europeans who treat us like dogs. We're defending Italians who treat us like dogs. I mean, think about this. Black Lives Matter. Mike Brown is dead. Trayvon Martin is dead. Philando Castile is dead. And they had a march. Freddie Gray is dead. They had a march. And they drew close to 50,000 people at this march. And white women had a march because they were losing their jobs or because Trump was becoming president, and they had 1 million. I remember we talked last week about the little beef between Cornel West and Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I reflected back on Cornel West when he had a debate on the Donahue show with Sister Soldier. And she asked the question to Cornel West. She says, where are all these good white people you keep talking about? And the reason why she asked that question is because there are no policies out there that are being offered by anyone that impact on our community positively. So it has to be us. Do you know that before the so-called right and the NRA, National Rifle Association, took on D.C. under Mayor Fenty, that there never was a decision that was made by the Supreme Court indicating that you had a right to bear arms, Second Amendment right, an individual right. It was considered to be a militia type of thing. This is 2008, 2005 to 2008. Now you have, according to the Supreme Court, a right to carry the gun, to bear arms. Because that lobby, that white lobby, decided to do that. And the discussion about it in the law is what? It's about we need to make sure more people register their guns, etc. But people who are killing us aren't killing us with no registered guns. Where's the law? Or where's the targeting of something that directly impacts on our community? I haven't represented anybody who had a registered gun, who used it. The one guy I did represent who had a registered gun brought the gun in from Dallas, Texas, thinking it was okay to transport it. And he got racially profiled, and then they wanted to lock him up for his own gun, which was registered. Our community, there's no legislation that's targeting our communities. If people are complaining about us dying at record numbers and guns being the impetus for it, where's the legislation? Where's the system or the part of the system that's saying this community matters? This community needs help. It needs help. But who is coming to help? Who is willing to help? The people who are going to be willing to help are going to have to be all of you who are texting in. I see Charlotte, North Carolina there. I see New York City there. Wow, I see Dallas, Texas there. And here's how you're going to have to help. You're going to have to take on the criminal and the criminal justice system. Everyone has the right to a fair hearing, regardless of what kind of crime they've been accused of committing. But we have to head this off before it gets there. The kid who killed this Tabas kid, Jonathan Tabas, he came from somewhere. His people came from somewhere. And they have to be made to feel whole. They have to be made to feel like they belong to something. Because the minute you feel like you belong to something, you defend that right to feel that way. It's like the young boy who gets a girlfriend. As soon as he gets a girlfriend, he feels empowered. He feels important. And he'll defend her. Even when the bully comes around and says, give me your girl, he'll defend that. because it's righteous. It's the right thing to do. If he has any respect for himself or any respect for her, he'll defend that. That's how simplistic it is. We have to be able to empower our community with the ability to say, this matters to me. And we don't do it by slogans. We just can't do it by slogans. We can't do it by books. We have to be on the ground. We have to get on the ground. We have to institute the programs that are necessary to say there is a psychosis in our community that says that I know this kid who shot this boy, but I'm not going to snitch because our community doesn't snitch. I never heard such weak bullshit in my life. That's the weakest thing I ever heard in my life. That's a punk. That's a coward. How are you going to allow someone to destroy? That would be like saying, I know somebody came in during Thanksgiving and he pulled his pants down and pissed on my turkey, but I'm not going to say who did it. You would be more upset over somebody pissing on your turkey than you would if somebody came in and killed somebody in your community. Or if someone was hustling out of a back basement apartment and you know that it's killing your community. Here's how you know. Anybody who's listening, or anybody who's writing me, I'm not going to respond to all your texts. Name me a community where they have some drug dealers who are hustlers who have been successful. You got generation after generation after generation after generation of dead hustlers or imprisoned hustlers to be able to draw from, to say it doesn't work. All you got to do is look at your streets. It doesn't work. They trying to come up. It doesn't work. You make up $30 million a year, you LeBron James, or you, what's the boxer's name? Floyd Mayweather. You make $30 million, and that's your success? Because you moved out of the hood? When you have the ability to rebuild the hood, to reshape the hood in any kind of person's image. And what do? That's the question. Those of us who have nothing always seem to be the ones who are trying to reshape the thinking of the hood. Those who have pretty much what they think is everything are always talking about, oh, yeah, I'm donating to a foundation. That's the silliest thing you ever heard in your life. We have to begin to change the, but that's part of the mentality. That European thought process says that things matter. And so therefore, when you do things, when you give people things, that's supposed to raise them up. That's not what raises people up. Morality raises people up. Standing for right, no matter who it's for or who it's against, raises communities up. This is why so many of us were attracted to the Black Panther Party. When we saw those brothers standing with their guns in Sacramento, standing for the people, we all at that age wanted to join. I want to be a part of that. That's revolutionary. That's right. That's standing up. Our community needs this. I want to be a part of that. I want to feed the kids. I want to clothe the kids. How is it that we riding around in a town like Baltimore and there's homeless people on the street? There's blight and there's dirt everywhere. And we expect our kids to grow up with a mental state that says, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to do something positive today. It doesn't work like that. We have to be the ones who change it. And then we have to be the ones who are advocating in the courtrooms, advocating for the changes of the law that eliminate the racism that's in the law. And then when we see it, every time we see it, we have to fight it and try to chop it down. We can't settle President Obama for someone telling us that 100-to-1 disparity between crack and powder cocaine has now been reduced to 18-to-1 and think that you got that right. That's the old Malcolm expression. You stick the knife 10 inches in my back and you pull it out 5 and you tell me, okay, I got some progress. I'm dying, but you're telling me about progress. That's a lie. That's a subterfuge. That's stealing. That's stealing my legacy. That's stealing my honor. That's telling my kids again the same thing you told them when you said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. You lied. And my kids fell for it. And every time they recognize it, they get deeper and deeper and deeper into this psychological thing where they say, we don't matter. And if that kid believes he doesn't matter at 14, when I meet him at 16 or 17 at the 7-Eleven, he is going to think I don't matter. And if he has a gun, which should never have been in our community, we, as they say in Boys in the Hood, we don't own no gun factories. How are they getting guns in our community? Like they are. We have to change it, and we have to be the ones who change it, because no one else is fighting for us. We have to fight like hell for us. And please, don't tell me it's not my son. Jonathan Tabash is my son. My dead son. I am fighting for him. I never met him one day, but I love him. He represents me. He represents my failure to act. He represents all of our failures to act in Baltimore. The kid who shot him represents our failures to act in Baltimore. We have to act. We have to exterminate roaches. We have to eliminate rats. We have to eliminate vermin. And we have to eliminate criminality from our mentality and from our community. Because no one else is going to do it. And the reason why no one else is going to do it is because they have no use. No one else has a use for us. Except us. And for all you ones who thinks that if you just, go along to get along, you got 400 years of going along. And look at where it got you. Look at where it got you. The unemployment rate right now is the same as it was in 1963. The homicide rate, if you do balance it out per capita with the population that was in 63 versus now, is the same rate as it is now. The dropout rate is the same as it is now. We can't get on the bus together before some guy is calling a female a bitch or some woman is calling a dude a nigger. We don't use the word sisters no more. We have bit on the word nigger like it really means something. Can you believe that? I mean, we really do. It's like, that's my nigga. Really? Who started that? That's my nigga. All y'all do, go watch Roots and watch Chicken George's daddy. When you say, that's my nigga George. I had a judge tell me one day, I was trying to introduce a federal judge, in the middle of a trial, tell me that nigger is a term of endearment. Therefore, she wouldn't allow me to introduce it to impeach the credibility of a witness as him being biased against black men. Nigger is a term of endearment. You know what I did, right? You know how I am. I said, so rumor is in that same community, bitch is a term of endearment too. So if I called you a bitch, would that mean that you think I'm being nice to you? Yeah, it cost me $500. This is where we are. This is who we are. But if we can produce George Washington Carver, if we can produce Malcolm X, if we can produce Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., if we can even produce Ben Carson, even though he might be an idiot politically, he was a genius as it relates to a surgeon, if that's his lane. If we can produce hip-hop, if we can produce jazz, if we can produce Michael Jordan, if we can produce the civil rights movement that could change the way the world saw the black man throughout the world, we can stop this. We can stop crime. We can stop criminality in our community. We just have to want to do it. Let me say this, one final thing. It's going to take a moral commitment. And I'm sorry, every celebrity that's out there, if that celebrity isn't down with your community, get them off your Twitter feed. Get them off your Facebook. Don't credit these people for being successes if they're not doing anything to uplift your community. They're not successes. They are a part of the white supremacy narrative. They Donald Trump. They just like them. They feel the same way about you that they do. Don't allow that to be your barometer. Allow your barometer to be, I don't care if it's the preacher or the imam. If he's not standing for truth, no matter who it's for or who it's against, if he's not helping in your community, if his plan isn't to move your community forward, get rid of that fool. Find you someplace where the people are standing for you, because it's going to come a time to where it's going to come back to you. It's going to come back to your community. It's going to stare you right in the eye like that kid staring me in the eye walking down the street in Irvington saying, nigga, what you doing here? Right now, we're worried about it because it's police. Right now, we're worried about it because it's young black boys. But sometime that stuff is going to come home, and it's going to come home with a vengeance, and it's going to come quickly, and it's going to come on all levels. And if you're not ready, if you haven't mobilized your community, well, I hope you make it home. I'm on my way home. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm on my way home. Hopefully I'll make it there, at least as long as the police don't get me.